All right. I think we are on. Welcome, Addison.
Hello,
Oh,
Anne. It's
hi.
great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. Today, we're going to talk about faith in the marketplace. And this is happens to be the first episode of season 2. So we're so excited to have you here. I just want to kind of open up with this. Really about what this means. So, welcome to On Your Terms Live. I'm Anne Franzese Bourne, and I'm really glad that you're here. You can scale a business and still feel misaligned. You can lead teams, hit goals, and grow revenue while quietly wondering if the way you're building actually reflects what matters most. That tension is more common than most leaders admit. So, on Your Terms Live, we explore what it looks like to lead with clarity and intention, rather than pressure and expectation. These conversations are about alignment, how values, decisions, and execution come together in real leadership environments. So, today's conversation is especially meaningful to me. Faith has been a foundation in my life as far as I can remember, not as certainty, but as grounding, not as answers, but as discernment, and as a reminder that leadership and life were never meant to be carried alone. So today we're talking about faith in the marketplace as a quiet, steady source of clarity, discipline, and purpose. And I am honored to have you here with us, Addison, Regional Director of Community at Faith Driven Entrepreneur. And I thought I just let you tell us a little bit about you, and we'll talk about how you're living life on your terms.
Yeah, sounds great, Anne. First of all, thanks for the invitation. It was really been awesome to work with you through Faith Driven Entrepreneur, with you facilitating foundation groups for entrepreneurs, really just answering this question, hey, what does it mean to live out our faith in the marketplace? And I didn't realize whenever I said yes that I'm episode 1 of season 2. So I feel like I have a standard, a gold bar that I have to live up to now since I'm the first one right out of the gate.
That's right.
But I will say, with a baseball background and coaching background, I do rise to the challenge, so I'm up for it. So here's to a great time. A little bit about myself. I will give you the heightened, shortened version as we step into this conversation. But whenever I graduated, I know this is a faith in the marketplace conversation. So whenever I was graduating college, which has been a number of years ago now, but I felt a shift. I thought I was going to go into criminal justice, and I ended up getting my master's degree in criminal justice. That led me to prison ministry with a current church right out of college. And then I coached for a few years, collegiate baseball, which now is one of the entrepreneurial ventures that I have today. But the mindset that I had in 2017 really was, how can I personally make my work meaningful? And that was a conversation. That was a question that I asked myself, going to church, prison ministry, doing devotionals with the college players that I was coaching at the time, just really felt this nudge. I'd always been around my dad and mom, who were very business minded, entrepreneurially minded. So that just kind of naturally gravitated to me thinking about leadership. And then moving into college and beyond, I wanted to mesh my faith and work together. So in 2017, that's really where I answered the question myself. How can I make my work meaningful? For that led me down the road of nonprofit organizations. And so quick flyover, I worked at Right Now Media for a number of years, then was a community manager of another global nonprofit that worked with churches as well and business owners. And then fast forward to where I am sitting today on this episode is with Faith Driven Movements, specifically focused on Faith Driven Entrepreneur. And it'll be 4 years in May. So I would say faith in the marketplace, faith driven leaders. That's certainly a conversation I've had over the past 8, going on 9 years now. And I have to say, I love it. So I'm very excited about this opportunity to have this conversation today.
Yeah, thank you. Wow. It's a lot. I mean, it's I think that whole grounding piece that I mentioned before, finding that we find it at different times in life. Sometimes we're lucky to see it and it fulfills us in some manner, where other times we might have seen it and without fulfillment, and then have a need for it at other times. And it just comes at different times for different people. So I feel that sometimes especially, I think that we are influenced when we do think about life as meaningful. And through my coaching, through the things that I've done as a coach, and what I do as a coach is I'm looking for that, helping my clients find meaning and purpose, because we can go through goal planning and all kinds of things, but without meaning and purpose, really what gets us up out of bed every day. And I think that when you tie your discipline with all of the things that you've done with baseball, and you tie that in, and then becoming a coach, because it's development of people, helping them find the meaning. It's just kind of becomes an innate thing for some of us. And then as we dive into it a little more, we see it all of a sudden as like, oh, those leadership skills I'm learning about. Oh, now I see how those have, kind of come around, and where there's a basis for. Because I think, especially going to church, there was always that basis of having some of those conversations all about, discernment and right and wrong and different things. So while it's not specifically about a particular faith, sometimes it's definitely about grounding morals. Where do you get these beliefs from? I think is really what I wanted to bring to light, especially. And a lot of us do this through faith, and we don't know how to do it and bring it together. And I'm going to say that I loved being a leader for small group with Faith-Driven Entrepreneur, and we're going to let people know more about that. But that foundational course that they go through, it is a wonderful way to see how people are making an impact. I mean, just from little things to just huge impact, right? And it's a tremendous group. You're worldwide, I would say.
Yes, we are a global nonprofit. We started in 2016, and we started groups formally in January of 2021. So right at the cusp of COVID, where people were at home, where they were more often than not feeling lonely and isolated. And whenever you put that into the perspective of entrepreneurship, I know that this is in the marketplace, but whenever you are able to get that clarity of community is important, relationships are important, and then also just start to ask the questions, how do I, and I know that we're going to get into this, but how do I live out my faith in the marketplace? What does that look like? So I'm excited for this conversation. And the one thing that you said was bringing things to light, the clarity. And one thing that I would just add is our identity is huge. And we talked about the foundation series. Our first mark of a faith-driven entrepreneur is our call to create. So most people know this, but just to reiterate, work was seen as good. Adam and Eve were told to toil in the garden and be fruitful in the garden before the fall even happened. So our call to work, our call to create is good. And we just have to think through, now, if we know that framework of work is good, how do we then go and execute with faith right beside us in that? So that's what gives me awake every day to talk through. And I will say, I haven't gotten it all figured out, but it's exciting to have conversations like this, to not only for myself to be encouraged, but to encourage other people that are in the same boat as you and I, as we coach, as we consult, and as we grow and develop people alongside ourselves as well.
Excellent. And that's a great segue, for sure, because to be hopeful and have that calling, however that calling is for you. So let's take a look at that. This calling isn't always loud. Often it's a quiet conviction to live and lead with integrity right where you are. And that's one of the reasons I created On Your Terms, is because we all live different lives. But I want people to understand and always know that they have a life of choice. It might not feel that way a lot of times. We might feel that something's controlling us, but we do have a choice of how we want to reframe that and where we want to go, right? So opening with that, let's talk about what faith does look like and what it doesn't look like in the marketplace. And kind of as a summary here, it's oftentimes it's not loud or performative. It's not convincing others, and it's not about perfection. And as we look at what it is and think of these things, think of how you step up as a leader and how you are, those that are watching and thinking about this, combining these things together, that your actions, people only know us through our integrity, right? Our identity is built, and we get to decide how we want that to be. And oftentimes that comes up with integrity. So what faith in the marketplace is this discernment under pressure, which is allowing you different ways for decision making, integrity in the decision making, consistency over intensity, and leading without carrying it all alone. Right? So how have you seen some of these things play out for you or others that kind of align here, or make you think, what does this make you think about?
Yes, it makes me think about a lot, and I know that I have a tendency to talk a lot. So I'll summarize in a couple of different ways. One thing that I love, and how you shape this, living life on your own terms or living life on your terms. The most important thing that I have been thinking through that I would just like to reiterate is what it is, right? You have some great thoughts there of, hey, what does faith look like in the marketplace? And I love what you said. It's where you are. We all have a uniqueness. We are all called to steward what we have been given. And I love going back to the idea of we all have our gifts, talents, and abilities. We all have uniqueness of our personalities. And, the encouragement there is to press into those personalities, press into what your gifts, talents, and abilities are. And that's going to allow you to naturally bring your best self to the marketplace, but also stewarding what you've been given. That also aligns with your faith as well. And, it's the framework of, hey, it's not what I want, but it's what I have to steward in the marketplace. And so I love that you pointed out it's not loud or performative, because then that gets you to the success or the shiny penny syndrome of, hey, I'm just going to go chase things for the sake of chasing, rather than being still with God and having the presence. I know that we talked about that even before this show, was this idea of presence over performance and presence over pressure. Would love to dive into that.
Yes.
But then also, what stands out to me is integrity in decision making and discernment under pressure. I've always said that you're not going to rise to the occasion. You're going to fall to the training that you've practiced, the training that you've been involved in those pressure situations. And so to focus on, how do you execute well? How do you present yourself? How do you move when people aren't watching? That's discernment. And whenever you get into those pressure situations, or you're dealing with a crazy colleague or a boss, or maybe you're the boss and you're having to deal with employees, how you effectively bring your best self to the marketplace, that's where you have that discernment. That's where you have integrity. And so that's where I try to stay in my frame of mind whenever I'm talking to entrepreneurs on Zoom calls, day in and day out. I have to present myself in a positive way, because truthfully, I am the first lines of defense whenever entrepreneurs want to explore who we are as an organization, or when I'm advising a baseball player for one of my own businesses that I operate. I have to present myself a certain way, and I have to be honest, but it goes back to integrity and discernment as to how I'm going to speak, how I'm going to act, and what I'm going to do. And that underlying factor is my faith. I'm driven by that standard, if you will, of living out and doing and practicing that in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And, practicing, it goes back to just think about yourself as an athlete. I play tennis. In fact, I played tennis 3 days this week because we had boot camp for tennis. But I have been playing tennis for 25 years, I think, when my kids started playing. And it's not something that I just pick up a racket and go out and do. It's something that I've built into my life.
Right.
And so when we think about the things that we're doing, because we're practicing it, then we are more familiar with it and it becomes easier for us, right? And so the same applies for all the disciplines of what we want to be important for us in our life and the growth. And that's where we're getting the growth from. So all of that is it's about being with it. So you're in it every day, and you're in it in a manner where you're actually throwing enlightenment, allowing that to happen for people, to just like encouraging that exploration, I would say, right? To come in and see what it's about and see how this works for you. So it's great because of, well, I just, even in my first group here, I met so many wonderful people. Had no idea that I would attract all these 30 somethings. So it's been a real fun group of people to work with who've got small businesses and doing it with their wives and men and women. It's really incredible to see what people, just how they're thinking outside the box and what they're capable of. So here's something interesting that I wanted to bring up, and really about why this feels hard sometimes. Meaning, oftentimes people will say, well, I never thought about blending faith and work together and what that is. No, but then I think that that's where this world has gotten into something called authenticity, right? And so while this has been going on, no one really labeled it authenticity. But being who you are and showing up who you are is really, what I found to be most effective. That they want a little bit more of what I'm doing. Well, this is what I do. This is how I shape up my world. This is what I like to do. And I'm happy for you to be a part of it, if that makes sense. But I just wanted to run through some of the ways that it might feel hard to people, and you see what you think of that, to reflect on that. Often it can be the fear of being misunderstood, right? It depends on your audience always too, and the people, and we all have, that takes us down a whole path about mindset.
Yeah.
And, whether we have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, and how that interplays, and how we're not only with our self-talk, but how it shows up with other people, and why we might talk ourselves out of something or talk ourselves into something, and all of that. So the fear of being misunderstood, pressure to compartmentalize faith and work, where that's what we're talking about. How do you just blend in your everyday actions? Uncertainty about how to show up authentically, goes back to the authenticity. Over responsibility and quiet burnout. Oftentimes we just have too much on our plate, that busyness that happens that we don't know how to pull back from. And then many leaders don't lack faith or talent. They lack space to integrate the two, because there's no time, right? We're faced with a lot of moving parts just coming at us. And the life of a leader is also the life of chaos, and it can be also the life of putting out fires all the time. So what do you think about why this can feel hard to people sometimes? Did I miss something? Or
I don't think you missed anything. I think it's just shedding light on the great opportunity that we have coming into the marketplace. A couple things that I would say is, over the course of the past 8 years that I've been working with church leaders as well as faith-driven entrepreneurs, and that's just the broad term utilizing here, not specifically the organization itself. Whenever you start to have the conversations with entrepreneurs, you are able to then cast a vision and really talk through opportunities that they have to structure their businesses in a way that glorifies God, without saying that you have to put a Bible on your desk as the CEO. There are ways that you can craft your mission statement. There are ways that you can craft your values and the way that you portray yourself in the marketplace. Do you show up on time? Do you show up early? Are you executing well? And then also on the church side, the more conversations that I've been able to have with pastors, they know that there is a need for marketplace ministry. they know that they're entrepreneurs, they're business leaders, those that are in the marketplace day in and day out, Monday through Saturday, perhaps even on Sunday, if you're not working at Chick-fil-A. If you know, you know.
Right.
But the idea is, how do I give back? How do I show my entrepreneurs? How do I show my people in my church that I care about them, that I want to relate to them, that I understand that there is this sense of burden that, not that they've done a disservice, but just we've kind of missed the conversation. We've kind of missed the bridge for the entrepreneur and the pastor to have the conversation. And so I think that misunderstanding, if you will, is not a fault. It's just an opportunity for us to learn and grow together. And I think that that's what I love about this conversation, because number one, if you go to church on Sunday, it's all about me. It's all about how I can have a better relationship with Christ. I mean, truthfully, that's what church is, right? It's how can I steward what I've been given and then have a relationship. Not a lot of churches are talking about the marketplace on Sunday morning. And I will say that there are a lot of churches that do that. But overall, how can we move this message to, number one, say your faith is important anywhere you go? And then us having this conversation about practically saying, hey, your faith in the marketplace, like, let's go and do that. Let's talk about ways that you can make your faith urgent in a healthy way whenever you're talking to a colleague in the locker or in the water cooler, right? I went to locker room,
Right.
Locker room talk is the same as the water cooler talk. It's just,
exactly.
But how do you show up authentically, right? How do you show up to be who you are and love on people? At the end of the day, we try to overcomplicate it, in my opinion, and which you've laid it out here. These are definitely things that we can talk through. But at the end of the day, let's just not force ourselves to preach Jesus to people. Let's just love people and show up well and see where that goes.
Yeah, I think that's great. I grew up as a Southerner. I'm from North Carolina and Tennessee, and raised my kids in the Midwest. But when I do go home, I have a friend, and he is all about that. He's just like, we just have to love on the people. And it's true. It is true. And I love it when I hear that, because we sometimes are just pushing so much. We want so much out of people when we could just love on them, treat them in such a kind way, because we don't know what's happening other places outside the world, where they've come from, the traffic they sat in, the bad conversation that just happened. We don't know those things, but that is loving on the people goes everywhere. So yeah, really, really nice. All right. So let's see here then. So faith as formation, not performance. Okay. So when we think of that, because sometimes I think leaders, especially business owners, we get so tied up in performance. And so and it's not only the action of it, but thinking of what faith as the formation does, is if that's our founding formation, our founding building blocks, then it's helping us to do these things that leaders do, which is how you think before you decide, right? Oftentimes, instead of just moving through it, it is that pause that we learn over time. A lot of us, we can be very reactionary, and finding that way to pause where others need to think it through. So they're doing that silent pause when you are thinking, right? So one is the how you think before you decide. Also, it's how you respond under pressure, which you're going to talk a little more about that. I sense how you define success and responsibility. That's again, it is what is most important, where are the priorities coming in, how you recover when things don't go as planned, right? And this, when I use this in coaching terms, is talking about all these energetic levels, how people feel, because we really get into these beliefs that we're holding tight on, or something that's causing us to judge something There are all kinds of reasons that we go into these reactionary modes instead of being intentional. And then how you recover when things don't go as planned. But faith shows up least in what we say and more in how we decide. I got that wrong there. But so it shows up least in what we say and more in how we decide, right? That is how we're showing up. So what do you think about that as a performance guy?
As a performance guy, you know, I laugh because I just did the culture index for an organization that I was talking to, and seeing how I respond. One of the spots on the culture index, if you're familiar with it, and it has the emotional, like it's on a scale of like 0 to 10, and then you have your emotion and your logic. And my emotion was more on so you have a line that kind of dictates here's where the standard is. Well, my emotion was like on a 4. And not to say that I'm emotional or I'm illogical, but it's just like a good standpoint where I feel pressure. Most of the time I tend to react emotionally. And so I think that goes back to just how competitive I am. And so I think back even yesterday, I was out with the horses with my daughter, and it was just a bad day. You just have those days where it was just bad. Addie was not having a great day. I was not having a great day. Like, it was just hard for us to communicate. And there was just some tension there. And I can't say that I did it perfectly. But one thing that I've talked to Adeline about that I even try to do, and it kind of goes back to, well, it does, thinking before you decide and responding under pressure. Whenever I have communicated to Adeline, hey, if you're feeling upset, if you're feeling pressure, take a deep breath, let yourself just come down a little bit. And I'm not a perfect dad, but when I can see Adeline get in those moments where she's feeling the pressure and she catches herself and she closes her eyes and she just takes a breath, like a deep breath, I know that I've had just a slight dad victory. But it's also a reminder for me that whenever I feel that pressure, I need to take that breath too, because the one thing that we cannot control is the things that we can't control, right? 90% of what happens to us is an outward expression. It's at 10% of how we actually perform and respond. That's really where that pressure is. So my encouragement to that, though, is to say, hey, life is going to happen. And to your point about being in traffic, of like, hey, you never know where people are going or where they've been. And I would also say, take the pressure off of yourself to say that you have to do everything perfectly because you have a faith. I think that faith sometimes handcuffs us because we have to realize that we have to be perfect all the time. And that pendulum of excellence, the closer you get to the perfectionist line, with faith kind of pulling it that way, the more that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure again. Well, no, you're human. And that's why we have grace. And so that's something that I have to talk about to myself. But then it shows up because we don't have to control everything. We don't have to react. There's also a reason why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can be quick to listen and slow to speak. And that's really what I have to think about, because, we're continuing to be chiseled away in our faith, but then also remembering that it's not all based on performance. And I think if we recognize that, number one, as people, that changes things. But then number two, as people of faith in the marketplace, realizing that we're all broken and we all need a savior. And so how can you be that person in the marketplace today? That's really what we're talking about. And that kind of, the bullet points that you have here are 100% accurate. So if you haven't taken a screenshot already and you're watching this, do that, because it's gold is what Ann is talking about here.
Yeah. Oh, well, you bring up so many things that that come to my mind when you say these things about, let's just take parenting. So how old is Addie?
Addie is 8 going on 13 or 18,
Yeah,
depending upon the day.
that's right, because she's a girl. Because she's a girl. Well, parenting, it's one thing to lead people at work, and it's another thing to have a life at home and
Yeah.
run your household and be the head of your household and know how to lead within that environment, because they operate in two different ways. You know, and having more of that patience and those things, but how you're guiding small little people and how you show all of that grace amongst the chaos. Because you know, a lot of times we can leave that. Some people can move out of that, and others are always in it. So there's a lot of things about parenting and life itself. Because when I coach a business owner or leader, I'm coaching them holistically about the whole picture, because life is not just about work. It is about all these pieces, and hence why we're talking about this. The other part that came up for me when you talked about this, and about authenticity, performance, or getting to that edge or feeling that perfection, is this imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
right? You know, we that goes back to choice. I think we can break down imposter syndrome when we come back to say, I have a choice here. If I want to be that kind of person, that's who I'm going to be. But we need to know how to get the skills developed to be in that role that we want to be in next, because our identities are continually shaping. Even though some people might not have the same belief that I have, my belief is that we can become whoever it is that we want to become. It just takes effort to get there. And the effort means, you know, discerning and understanding that this is where I was, but that doesn't make who I am, that I have these talents within, and I'm here to know how to bring those talents out. And we learn more and more about our skills, you know, what gifts we are getting. And sometimes we don't know that it's a gift. It's other people telling us it's a gift, right? Have you seen that too?
Absolutely. People tell me my superpower is super connecting.
Yes.
But I love doing that. You know, I love bridging gaps and
Yes.
finding opportunities to make connections, but then also build relationships. And it comes down to own own your story, right? But
Mhm.
also we're looking at it through a faith lens, and then have trusted people around you. I mean, you coaching people
Mhm.
is a huge it's a huge opportunity to be a sounding board for people, and that's really what we're talking about, is this idea of just being present where you are today and finding ways to be encouraged but also learn and then take action. Action is what we're talking about, a
Yeah.
formation of who we are in Christ, and then moving that needle to, once we have that, how do we execute
Mhm.
faith in the marketplace? What does that look like?
Exactly. And once we can do some of these things, then what we're doing is that we don't have to compartmentalize them really, but we can transfer those skills. So we're transferring then how we did certain things into how we do something else that we enjoy and want to learn more about or get involved in. And then all of a sudden this world is like, oh my gosh, it's so one big adventure. Life is so grand. And then you got to pull back, and then you can go back and come in. And
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and real quick, if I can double down
yes.
on one thing you said real quick, is a conversation that I had recently with another good friend of mine that's in the faith and workspace. And whenever you talk about compartmentalization of like, hey, I have work and I have my faith, what do I do with it? But I think that the mindset of making your faith urgent, like when your faith is urgent to you, that's
Mhm.
when you're going to start thinking of creative ways to bring it into the marketplace. Maybe it's not a flip of a switch or a light bulb moment, but as we think about our whole life, like you said, take a step back and look, and then say, okay, how can I, like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my hands and my feet in the marketplace today? And then I've got this faith over here, like in my toolbox. Like, how do I bring that out? And how do I love on people? And I think it's just a self-awareness of praying, right? You start with a minute a day, or start with the question, God, how can I show up for you today? And that
Mhm.
starts to eliminate this idea that we have to compartmentalize all these different things. And then it's executing from there. And then you get on conversations like these and you learn some more stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We're always learning. We're always learning, and
Absolutely.
growing, right? Okay. So, so one of the things that I just wanted to press upon is that what we're talking about is not about control, but it's about alignment. And that's everything that we've said and how. And we can get overboard, the same as eating or doing too much of something that's too good for us. So many sweets. Oh my gosh, if I have so many sweets, eventually I'm just going to be so sick. So let's not do that. But
Right.
for a common practice. So kind of here just to have some last reflections, and then I just wanted people to be able to explore where they can get into the how, what to do next thing. So is there anything else that comes to mind for you, or how can we build the bridge? I love this is still about building the bridge. And maybe I could just say that I learned about faith-driven entrepreneur through another coach that Stacey Ainsley. And I thought, oh gosh, this would be a great way for me to pull this into my life to see how your organization was doing things, because it's robust.
Mhm.
I'll just say that going through the 8-week course, just the you get a 20-minute movie every session that you go through, the 8 sessions that are so solid, and the story is so compelling. Things that make you think about your own life. I'm just going to touch on one part, because one of the very first ones that I love so much was when the gentleman was designing his casket.
Mm.
I thought that was amazing. And this was, part of his business and what he put in to do this and the things that he did. But maybe you can help us reflect and understand a little bit more about what faith-driven entrepreneur looks like and how people can lean in or step in.
Absolutely. Yes, I'd be happy to. Saddleback Leather is the company. Dave Munson, he's fantastic. His headquarters is in Texas. And quick story is, one of the ladies lives in North Texas that was in one of my early groups. And she actually went to Saddleback Leather headquarters, and they were great. Oftentimes you can watch a video and you're in the back of your mind, you're thinking, do they really play that out? Like, what does that really look like in the marketplace? And 100%, Dave and his staff, they truly live out their faith and their values in the marketplace. And so I would just highlight all of the entrepreneurs, all of the people that are crafting, growing, and scaling businesses that are living out their faith in the marketplace. And so faith-driven entrepreneur does 3 things: content, community, and connections. And my role specifically is to work with facilitators like Stacy, like you, and that say, yes, I see the value in what you're doing. And you raise your hand to say, yes, I'm going to lead an 8-week foundation series with a small group of entrepreneurs. Typically it meets for once a week for 8 weeks for about an hour to an hour and a half. And like you said, there's a video, and it's made to have an entrepreneur sharing their journey, like Dave with Saddleback, and then a pastoral teaching that ties it all together and allows for that conversation to naturally happen. Now that we've watched Called to Create, which is a Saddleback video, how do we execute that in the marketplace? And so I would say, if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, if you're a business owner or leader that's scratching the itch, that you want to be an entrepreneur, or even have an inkling of like, hey, how do I live out my faith in the marketplace in a company, in a leadership role, I would recommend checking out faithdrivenentrepreneur.org and seeing what we're all about. And feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll post your connecting information for that. It's really wonderful. I can't say enough about it. I love that you added that. It's also for aspiring entrepreneurs. Or those people that are working already, and how they want to live out their life. So it's just well done. You all do a fantastic job, and just really a nice calling there. The other tool that I wanted to just let you know about is It is a tool that my team has recently come out with, and it's called mindsetcoach.ai. And basically, it's a thinking partner to help you. It's a coach in your pocket, but a thinking partner for clarity under pressure. And it's to help leaders slow down, discern, and take the right next step. So sometimes we just don't have a sounding board, or we might go, oh my gosh, how should I say this a certain way? AI has allowed and opened that door for a lot of things. So we can embrace AI or we can push it away, but it is here to stay. So I'm really excited that we're able to offer that as a front door for people to be able to do that. And then it goes through, it takes a lot of the coaching background into that to bring that up. But as we wrap up, I just want to talk about, just give you a little bit here of what I'm sitting with. Living on your terms doesn't mean controlling outcomes. It means being aligned enough to make thoughtful decisions, even when things feel uncertain. So faith, values, and calling don't remove pressure. They give us a place to stand when pressure shows up. So if today's conversation stirred something in you, a question, a pause, a sense of recognition, don't rush past it. Alignment often begins not with an answer, but with awareness. So Addison, I want to thank you for bringing presence, humility, and clarity to this conversation. And to everyone who joined us, thank you for choosing to lead your life on your terms. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Addison. And we will definitely see you in Faith-Driven World and beyond. How's that?
That sounds great, Ann. Thank you for the time. It's been great.
All right. With that, I'll end the show. And thanks for everyone out there. Any questions, just let us know and pop those in. All right. Okay, I think I